Welcome to the Roof Books poetry reading. We're going to be having a group of 1, 2, 3, 4 poets reading today over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. So everybody, I think I was saying 7 or 8 minutes, but since several of the people who are going to be reading have taken ill, we're going to have a smaller group. Roof Books has been operating as a public resource for innovative and experimental poetry since 1976, and I started this then with some other folks, and continue to try to bring people into our under our roof with diversity, but always with an eye toward what's the next thing. The fashion, I'm interested in fashion and the idea of new ideas. And for many years now, I've been involved in environmental and ecological studies and writing about it. The press, as I now see it, through Segway Foundation, Segway means to connect without a bridge, is the goal of the press, to bring people together to make connections. So today we're going to have Gabriella Rucker, who was in the panel with us a few moments ago, E.J. McAdams, Biljana Obradovic, Tonya Foster. Tonya Foster will not be here, actually, she's in bed. And Norman Fisher, who's here with us from the Bay Area. So our first reader is Gabriella Rucker, who is a writer, editor, and poetic practitioner from the Great Lakes, currently living on the Gulf Coast. Her debut poetry collection, Dereliction, is available from the Song Cave, and I hope she's going to read some of it from tonight. So, Gabriella.
Yeah, and look, I'm only reading from it. I was so caught up by my talk that I didn't actually plan what order to read any of these things in, so bear with me. Reality check. Everything was for sale, including bad behavior. Anger was consistently lucrative, addictive even, the way one could viciously unwind against another, yet simply think themselves a spectator to violence and pageantry. Everyone was dressed in the latest fashions, hopelessly screeching up and down the block, expecting sympathy from strangers recently abused under dogmas of ego and rebranded religious zeal. I was embarrassed and it failed me. I was made complicit to bad casting in the blue lights mania. I believed lies I was unworthy of love and flourished in arenas sparring for pet names. I was all ambition groomed against my reality and made to suffer harms inflicted to my spirit under which I believe I could not survive. Quietly waiting for my angel to emerge moth-like from her box. I should be a better driver, a wiser architect than this. 3 turns at the helm of my kaleidoscope and the body pivots to the weather it rides. I might forget the altitude's lack, might wonder the math attached to the mountainside and my timing. Someone screams. Everything is mocking me. If I were still brave, I might jump, as I remember, from the jungle gym down towards the splintered wood chips to avoid my playtime captors. Now I look through windows they've paid for, recite numbers so I may pass through the armed guards, radioactive probing, and on towards the ticketed drinking fountains. How strange to rip through helpless clouds, imagining thrones clutching kings. It's laughable. the compassion some lack in its absolute relation to the endangered state of our environment. Poem as excerpt of an unfinished bibliography. This morning, despondently staring through the center of everything set in front of me, an amber glass of silvered Darjeeling, the riddled arithmetic of an essay wherein I see a glimpse of myself in the acknowledgments. Quote, I hope the length of the transcripts deter anyone from wanting to use them as fodder for a top-down analysis. The speakers are narrators and interpreters of their own experiences. They aren't subjects of any study, end quote, Derica Shields, A Heavy Non-Presence, 2021. As a child, I liked to read music, and then one day something like a voice spoke over me and rendered that symbolism dormant. I have this superstition that discourages me from daydreaming too much, or rather, interrupts the process, and so there are many threads left buffering in the interest of self-preservation, which is to say, however final a feeling I think, nothing will ever truly end with me. Faithfulness will be tested insofar as faithfulness can be tested. If you can make it out to the tree and back, if you can wake up from under the absence of clocks, walk forward cloaked in your full hypnosis, there will be a reward. I recognize it to be an uncomfortable shape. Not everyone reacts well when you stand by the coffee pot complaining or, through your tone, insinuate a looming instability by claiming, no, I simply cannot die. Imagine for a moment someone believed in your experience without you having to transcribe it in a book, and then defend its context from whatever prescribed unreliability they admittedly feel most comfortable in. It goes unquestioned. The order of your life and the details in which they unfolded, even the oddities such as the blackout you shared with your sister or that mishap with the Furby on the couch. Everything always happening in that one apartment complex. In lieu of television, I've known the mirror to be pleasing enough entertainment. Even when I glimpse, I'm rarely taking anything in, but am happy to waste my days this way, forever if I must, seated before myself spilling secrets. Quote, it is through language that you and I are now able to sit and talk with each other, develop a mechanism to understand one another. Language is entirely the point. End quote. Sylvia Wynter, What Will Be the Cure, 2021. I'll do 3 quick ones more. I don't say goodbye, I only say ciao. What bloody lens holds firm between this mystery and us? 2 shiny crows tapping intelligently on the glass of a dream. Please, do not make me do the human things. I must tend to my many plankton realities, must be off with my better self. 1 million faces lined along a mirrored tunnel, and in each, that same tricky not begging. You couldn't know how long I suffered over it, my long waiting at the end of the maze. I can only guess what you think I'm after, stretching in the mirror while you rattle on about sabotage and old tensions springing in the body. Brain food. No more writing about revenge, I decide in the kitchen. The banana pudding process is keeping me up late again. 40 minutes hand whisking 2 batches, 5+ hours chilled. I've got one last cigarette hidden in the nightstand waiting for the evening. The Laraji meditations fail and violence asked to be banished with fire and vapor. I look under the desk for nothing and find instead Susan Sontag, Regarding the Pain of Others, the bookmark inside pinned on the words Apollo's knife. It happens that you can be in conspiracy against yourself. I ruined my body for comfort when daydreams were scarce, toyed around with the preview settings and got this. There's nowhere to speak about what didn't happen. All I have are these poems and no kind of knowing outside of that. Ginkgo biloba in the mineral water gone sour. It's my last one, thanks. It's called Practice for Your Birthday. Woe is me, all these eyeballs aimed at this quick round heart, and all those gowns I was not given, and never enough counter space to cook, copper pots all over the place, and you so cool bragging about how easy it is to make money, explaining why you had to quit drinking coffee, never mind I'm broke, and never buy espresso unless I think I might be on the verge of knocking out. And yes, there were some years I took to cigarette smoke, but never enough for me to think I should stop. Not everything is a habit. For better or worse, some of us have a strong hold on our personalities, and that's the difference between what you think and what I think. We don't need to be any more than we already are. All those days we lost bickering back and forth within ourselves, moody in the kitchen, scrutinizing what I might have meant when I refused the cake. In reality, it's not such a complicated thing. Sometimes I'm simply not that hungry, and we had been driving for hours across highways, listening to songs only you knew, and at the time I was curious about it, cautiously tapping my fingers on the shell of your back, trying to decipher how I crawled out from under my girlhood to here, passenger seated in the parking lot of a biscuit diner, watching you self-project onto some hillbilly in a yellow pickup truck when I could have just went home, my gut said, as we came rolling down the hill, and only I marveled at the big black tree engulfing the street lamp. Thanks.
Thank you, Gabrielle. That was great. I was glad to hear your poetry. Our next reader is E.J. McAdams, a poet, naturalist, and nonprofit leader who works for BirdLife International, a partnership of 122 national civil society organizations working to protect nature and people. His first book of poems, Last, came out from BlazeVox last year, so let's give a warm welcome to E.J. McAdams.
Thanks, James. Thanks for instigating the panel and for this reading. I'm going to start with a new poem, so new I wrote it like at 11 a.m. this morning. I arise today. I arise today. I arise today in apocalypse. Apocalypse with me. Apocalypse before me. Apocalypse behind me. Apocalypse in me. Apocalypse beneath me. Apocalypse above me. Apocalypse on my right. Apocalypse on my left. Apocalypse when I lie down. Apocalypse when I sit down. Apocalypse in the heart of everyone. Apocalypse in the mouth of everyone. Apocalypse in the eye of every bird that sees me. Apocalypse in the ear of every creature that hears this cry. I rise with this cry. I rise with this uncertainty. I rise with this vulnerability. I rise with this relative stupidity. I arise with lonesomeness. I arise with this impossible chorus of birds. I arise with poetry. I arise with you, which is enough, which is enough, which is enough, which is enough to address the apocalypse. Yesterday, James and I and a couple other poets went out to look for birds here in New Orleans, and we went up to the city park. We saw quite a few, in particular an indigo bunting, which is this spectacular blue bird, a real vision. And with the poets, we started talking a little bit about the poet Jack Collum. And this is called Jack Collum, Memorial Reading, Bird List Poem. So a bunch of poets together in New York, we went out and did a little bird walk in honor of Jack. I went to the actual place where I had gone birding with him in Central Park. Here's the list. 1, European starling. I remember wondering what reading the poet's words collectively could do. 2, house sparrow. Reading Jack's poems. Common grackle. The poets burying the poet in them. Pigeon. Bird, song, poem. American robin. Birds sung Jack's poem, not much difference. Housefinch. Setting sun shone on morning poets, no F-A-R-T acrostics. F-A-R-T. Northern cardinal. Feel searing sponemes in your larynx. Whoa. American redstart. Exchanges change the exchangers, the exchange, the medium. Yellow-crowned night heron. Just Jack making poems by other means. Northern water thrush. Nature's long experience of sustain. We have a lot to learn. Song sparrow. Inefficiency, redundancy, diversity, good tools for human uncertainty. Northern flicker. Self-correcting feedback. Palm warbler. Poets reading the dead poet's poems. Blue-gray gnatcatcher. The poet in death becomes poets. Ruby-crowned kinglet. Warbler, dusk, chorus. This book is called Last, and you can see on the front it has 2 passenger pigeons from the Audubon print who've been cut out. And it's just a silhouette. It's actually an artist who lives here in Louisiana named Brandon Ballinger. And the next poem I'm going to read is called Last, and it comes, the title for the poem comes from the obituary of the last passenger pigeon who died in the Cincinnati Zoo in 1914. The bird's name was Martha. Last. 1. Death is the last of, the last standing, wild in North America, from the time through when she first pecked the shell. Death nursed her carefully, a zone remains the size of black wings. 2. There has to be found the extinct way within loss, so that together feathers will be preserved of queenly young delight and love iridescent. And all those words came from the obituary itself. I just took them out. It's so nice to have a poem like that. I'm going to read a poem that's inspired by Gabrielle's pamphlet. This was the quote that she read that's probably worth rereading from Suzanne Césaire, The Great Camouflage. A peasant who himself was not swooped up in the hoopla surrounding the mechanical adventure, leaned against the great Mapu tree of spirits that shades the entire side of a mountain, and felt rising within himself, through his toes dug firmly into the mud, a deep vegetal thrust. That was holding the page. There we go. Before sowing, one must cut. Curious as a cat about this goldfinch on a sycamore branch, dazzle of neon yellow against matte green leaves, I can almost fall for the way in flight it knits the present moment a unity of until potential climate futures seep through the stitching, boiling black ooze of ruins, human cries like singing birds' twisted necks, entangled in the knot of this world, where injustice is distributed unequally by gun muzzles. It's a nightmare out there, the blind mycelium remind me, through a nerve, polyphony at my toes. No one knows the future, so you have to choose. No one knows, you have to choose. This is a new poem, a relatively new poem too. It's called Soon Is Now. 1. Soon is now is no longer now. New was soon before, it was now. Now is soon, not now. Not now is the past. The future, not now, is the new now. The end is not new, not soon. End ends all the time, and yet, I am dead with you in the future, soon, not now. Now there's suffering in this now. I am with you now, eye to eye, loving soon across species beneath bare, bright sun as noon, endlessness. 2. Soon or now, earth or groundless, earth, sky, or fireful sky, cries clear, close the end, endless or the endlessness, upending, half hoping or half fearing the future. Soon, not now, hope then, fear then, hope then. Hear the cries, birds, neighbor, ant, cries, bear, other, cries. Now soon, my cries or yours, tree, worm, rat, our cries soon, cries soon or now, quiet blue sky, bright sun, gray ruins or green refugia, ever or never after now, soon enough is enough or should be, fragile bodies, gentle faces, facing fate or chance, hoping, fearing, nearing, no, or only is soon, now, head in the ground, or dead in the ground, same old, same to remain as refusal, or perhaps as a fuse, not to exceed a safe level, to take in the cries as clear and real and our own, not getting out of it, not consuming our way out of it, giving our little bit of it away, or sharing it like family. 3. Soon now, river runs, gulls cry, fish hunt, and hunted, half wishing it stays this way, half knowing it won't soon or now, flash flood or drought, now becomes new suffering, near cries joined far cries, above, below, along this river we face, reflection or shadow or grief at the end of this. Now we know the endlessness of the end flows and plays past us. Our life is soon with others, with neighbors, with gulls, fish, trees, light, flows, plays on waters now, and soon light stirs us to be better neighbors to each fragile other. And the river will be better neighbors to each other, and the river light stirs us to be better neighbors to the river, rivering, giving, clear water, neighborly, without cease, soon and now. And this is the last poem. It's called Orthoptera Offers a Song to Humans. Orthoptera are like grasshoppers. 1. Touchings where sound comes from, stridulating leg to leg, corrugated wing to wing, leg to wing to wing to leg, leg wing, 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 wing leg, leg, leg. 2. Touchings where sound comes in, decibelling below knees, hearing without ears, earth's width were. Genuflecting a vibratory reflection about lip edge of thin membrane, tympanum drum a thrumming, echoing and curve of the bowl, above bowel, sounding and resounding, resounding and re-resounding. 3. Sounding to touch across distance, de-distance to resound as touching, touching distance, courts broader collectives, insect, concrete, earth, rail line, tree, steel beam, Cuban, iron, pelt, glass, distant touch by sound, gathers quantum choirs, difference, no difference, difference, no difference. 4. Human larval imagination contains imaginal discs for embryogenesis. Chord molts to tone, tone to chord, a chordotonal organ develops, envelops in a trans-species pupa for incomplete metamorphosis. One day, touching, distant, sounding, may perhaps finally almost complete. Thank you.
Thanks, EJ. Our next reader is Biljana Obradovic, a Serbian-American poet, translator, and critic. She's a professor of English at Xavier University here in Louisiana, and the reason that I know her is that she recently translated the roof title, The Politics of Hope, by her countrywoman, Dubravka Juric. So now we'd like to hear Biljana Obradovic.
Thanks, James, for this beautiful book that took me 1.5 years to translate. It was not easy, but here it is. This is what it looks like. I'm going to read just one poem from Dubravka's book. Sorry she's not here. It'd be nice if she were. It's called Nostalgia 2. It's kind of because it's 1 month before I go to Belgrade, so I'm very excited. Nostalgia is a weird drive. It flies out of an owl's head. Wisdom mirrors itself in it, comes out of the sea foam. With beauty, it bewitched the world. Borders cannot be crossed. Speech about freedom limits romantic stems, decorated fir trees for unnamed holidays. I celebrate relaxation. I celebrate lunches. I celebrate silence. Vehicles pass by, everything beyond me has no meaning. Signs of threat multiply up and down, disappearing in earthquakes, fiery forked tongues of snakes, aging beauties, the strong body in a foam of algae. Then behind this curtain appears a creature and rushes with its paws towards the spring. The valley stretches next to us, the mythology of the moon, folded in purple crystals, bays without a brace. That's Dubravka Juric. Check this book out. So sort of since everybody was reading nature stuff, I thought I'd continue the same vein. Not everything, but this one. To go with Dubravka's poem. This is called Pickled Snakes, or Snake Wine, and it's from my new unpublished collection, coming soon. It's in memory of my father. We all knew about my father's hatred and fear of snakes. We wouldn't even look at a picture of one, let alone look at a live one in a zoo, or one in a nature show on TV. I too am scared of snakes, but not my brother, nor my son. I could never look at them as a child. Later, my husband, not me, took our son to look at them at the New Orleans Zoo. But the most extreme example of my father's phobia was when he was going on a Far East diplomatic mail pickup trip. And a colleague who used to live there asked him to bring back to him wine with a pickled snake for virility, for increased sexual performance. Due to its high alcohol percentage, it's drunk from shot glasses. Dad found it in China and bought a bottle, but he couldn't sleep at night in his hotel room, aware of the snake's presence in his suitcase. As soon as he showed it to us when he returned, he called the guy up, asked him to come to pick it up right away. He wouldn't try the drink after the man offered it to him, especially not when he joked how after he drank the wine, he chopped up the snake and ate it too. All my father wanted was for him to take that damned thing away. And a funny poem, I'm sure those of you who teach like me find those interesting things that students say in their papers. And so I decided to collect them in this poem. I teach Xavier 27 years, can you believe it? My God. Student errors in tercets. Wollstonecraft reminds me of a womanist when she begins to become bitter and aggregating. So mentally, that must have been mind-bottling. If only she had worn a N-E-E-D, length dress that filled the body perfectly. Perhaps she was as a poem in a trimester, and there was a doublet at the end. If you're not ready to take responsibility that comes along with having sex, try absences. Otherwise, deal with pregnancy and how it was contracted. But that kind of poetry is now very much unflavored, as was Melville's Bartleby the Scavenger, whose confliction caused major problems. We must then appreciate things as they are. Don't take them for granted. But sometimes women must leave France due to the Freud Revolution. They represent knowledge of right and wrong. This is known throughout the USA. But then Jasmine was a little more in death than Heart of Darkness. Rosa Parks was the mother of the Civil War movement, as was Martin Lutheran King Jr., and I don't agree with Mr. Bush, who says that abortion is orally wrong. Yep. So that was kind of crazy. So that's my experimental stuff. So this is one of my books, Little Disruptions. These are from WordTech Press. I'm going to read one about, I know Roger's here, so read one for him. This is an ekphrastic poem. It's called Safe in the US of A, after Albert Durer's The Dead Christ. 1. Strolling around the Cleveland Museum of Art, I didn't see any Durer paintings or etchings, yet they had postcards of the writers of the apocalypse at the gift shop. I asked a volunteer at the front desk why Durer's work was not displayed, if they owned it. She told me I could request to see it, make an appointment with a curator, but had only one day before leaving the city to fly home. No time for an appointment. She said, I may be able to see them now, to ask. For once, a wish of mine was granted. In just 15 minutes, I would go to a viewing room to stare at a Durer I'd always wanted to see, had always loved. I'm amazed at his strokes, his precision. I admired every line, every shading, his distinct handwriting and dates, the huge A like a table towering over the D. A show just for me of 3 works, the writers, the dead Christ, and a surprise. The curator, a German named Kleinschmidt, let me sit down beside the easel displaying the works. First, she placed the Apocalypse, then the surprise with hunters, dogs, and castles, and last, the dead Christ from 1505, a perspective of Christ I'd never seen before, seen from his legs up. So human-like, he lay with his arms spread, his knees together covering his manliness. Holes gaped in his feet, in his hands from the nails. He lay on a piece of cloth to shroud. You could barely see his face, barely recognize the Christ in him, so humiliated in his death. I looked on in silence while the curator at a distance tried not to disturb me, her eyes flickering from my eyes to the holes in Christ's feet. She kept watching me while I watched her watching me. There I sat with Dürer, so close to the exposed drawings, not in glass cases or frames, with nothing between his pencil strokes and me. I could almost feel his hand inside mine drawing these figures. I, in awe, stumbled out as if drugged. My friend's boyfriend opened the car door to me. I told him I couldn't understand my good fortune. Why would they keep these treasures away from the public? 2. That was January 1998. In April that year, I learned that these very drawings were Hitler's favorite, stolen from Jews from a museum, never returned. They were sold to this Cleveland museum. Now the Lubomirsky Museum in Ukraine wants them back. In 1941, Nazi loot safe in the USFA. The article said, at the end of the war, the Allies attempted to safeguard stolen artworks and return them to previous owners, but soldiers on both sides of the war helped themselves to unguarded treasures. 3. Now history has repeated itself. As always, an American soldier, as well as Iraqi soldiers, but soldiers being soldiers and not, for the most part, historians, have looted unguarded ancient treasures belonging to 26 million citizens of that country, far older than the US, millennia apart. One day, these may end up at the museums such as the Cleveland Art Museum to be admired by yet other leaders of countries. And someone like me may stumble upon a gold ring with a ruby stone said to have belonged to a Babylonian king and gaze on it in peace from the other side of the planet, unaware how close her eyes lie to those of monsters. So I'm an artist too. This is one of my paintings on the cover of this book. I have one more poem? Okay, so this is another kind of funny one. The last poem in the book, Ramses' Devotion, after Ramses the Great. In 1974, Ramses II, redhead mummy, was flown to Paris from Cairo for an examination as it had been infested with a kind of fungus attacking his body. Issued an Egyptian passport that listed his occupation as king, deceased. The mummy was received at Le Bourget Airport just outside Paris with full military honors befitting a king. They then killed his fungus. The examination revealed battle wounds, old fractures, arthritis, and poor circulation, just like the rest of us. I wondered if when he was alive, he had dreamt of flying and now actually was, after death, over 3,000 years later. Oh, if he only knew, what would he have thought? For a while, when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with him, thought his exposed face was so well preserved. Now I don't quite understand my fascination back then. What did I see in him? But then again, this type of trans-world transgression or transportation does not occur very often. Whatever happened to, may he rest in peace, But then why rest? Fly the friendly skies, be set free. Thank you.
Our last reader is Norman Fischer, Zen priest in the lineage of the Shunryu Suzuki and author of more than 15 books of poetry, soon the author of a roof book entitled Through a Window, and our last reader, Norman Fischer.
Thanks, James. Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening. This is from There Was a Clattering As, a local production from Bill Lavender, Lavender Inc. It's a book-length work of collage mostly. I will indicate the facts on which there is agreement and certain others which are doubtful but not wholly fantastic. The phoenix is sacred to the sun. Those who have depicted it agree that its head and the markings of its plumage distinguish it from other birds. Regarding the length of its life, accounts vary. The commonest view favors 500 years, but some estimate that it appears every 1,461 years, and that the three last seen flew to Heliopolis in the reigns of Ctesiostis, Amasis, and Ptolemy III, respectively, escorted by numerous ordinary birds, astonished by its unfamiliar aspect. Its earliest appearances are unverifiable. When its years are complete and death is close, it is said to make a nest in its own country and shed over it a procreative substance from which rises a young phoenix. Its first function after growth is the burial of its own father. This is habitually done as follows. After proving with a long flight with a load of myrrh that it is capable of the burden and the journey, it takes its father's body, carries it to the altar of the sun, and burns it. The details are disputed and embellished by myths, but that the bird sometimes appears in Egypt is unquestioned. The group's performance in the lovely amphitheater with natural wood stage and bare wood seats with an orchestral ensemble and a saxophone quintet and a rapt, hushed audience with and a saxophone quintet and a rapt, hushed audience was wondrous, funny, various, witty, intelligent, sometimes beautifully lyric in a way that made you swoon. Round and large, with heroic ceiling. And what is music but invisible shape, meaning without concept, feeling without meaning, simple and emotional sound. Self-sacrifice, bombing, a young man's act, death, an adventure built on discipline, fasting, and prayer, idealism, courage, a willingness to give up life in pursuit of the good and the true, Allah be praised. With regard to human affairs, not to laugh, not to cry, not to become indignant, but to understand. In philosophy, sameness wants to subsume otherness, feels the scission between leads to violence and disharmony and cannot be true, and thought must make this right. But the resistance of other to same is philosophy's failure, and in the end, same's called to question by other, which is other's function and true identity, not to see other as same, but to recognize it's absolutely being other, alone and pristine, reaching out for another and never touching. So other calls forth altruism towards same, which is other, to it as its very nature, and expression, self-sacrifice. Bombers do not come face to face at this point with other as same. Face to face with victims in staggering human wonder, cannot look into liquid human eyes, subsume such form of living under sameness. Notion flag of Allah, this is not Allah's wish, not Allah's eye, nor music, nor sound, nor meaning without words. They fast, they pray to overcome fear, to cover nakedness, to close wounded openness, to loose humanity, we victims, same in death. Gaze into heated, terrified eyes, grieving, weeping even as bombs burst, planes topple tall buildings. Religion totalizes, making holocausts possible. Smoke rising up the sky as before, truth beyond life and death, its rightness, its fanatic, transcendent ecstasy, tapping into attractive, fundamental human urge to truncate the journey we are meant to make, being merely ordinary in clunky physical world. To die for truth bypasses all that boring daily human effort, like avoiding the dishes and vacuuming, sweeping as I am doing now, writing this, and burning the house down by way of cleaning up. Effective, yet sadly beside the point. She wrote forever in the book and left, so I could not ask her the many questions on my mind. Is money more solid than belief? Is belief money? How will we generate the necessary funds to pay the bills for what supports life this time of crisis? Eating and sleeping and sheltering in place, swollen like a fat white cloud hovering over a stampede of spectators, rushing out of the lecture hall, then for a week, a month, a year, fasting and debasing oneself in the middle of a horrible secret, reciting and prostrating, certain of heaven, and houris at your side, blown up with the others whose eyes are white with terror, while yours are hooded, entranced, fixed outside time on a satisfaction no human could sustain too long this side of death. He who hates vice hates humanity. And I'll read a little bit from the forthcoming roof text. Go through a window, and it's describing. It's kind of a phenomenology of actually looking at stuff. Because I just sat outside my window and looked at what was out there, the same thing out there all the time, over about a year. And there's something, like my whole life, yours too probably, is repetition, right? You just get up in the morning, you go to bed at night, you take a bath, you eat food, you wash the dishes. It's very repetitive. It's the same damn thing, over and over and over and over again. And I'm fascinated with that. Spiritual practice is like that, right? You just do the same thing over and over and over again, just to see what happens the next time you do it. So I looked out the window every day, and wrote, through, I guess it's about maybe 12 months or so. So I'll read just a few pages from this. Maybe I'll have time to read a few more things. Low, lavender, clump. Where's human interest? Tail in slightly moving wind. Dumb plants. No wanting. Where's plot? A land, curve of old acacia trunk. Twists, reach up, out, into, still, non-drama. So these are a series of little poems. Pine tree bark, dark on southwest side, in some splotch, pale blue sky patch, beyond space, all in brain, all in mind's eyes, pool, abstract, drawn away by eye, abstract perception, abstract expression, abstract, struct, struct, object, hurl, enfolded structures. Shadow painted dark, on slope where yellow grass patch made dark there, assumption, imperception, sneaky tricks, sleight of hand and ear-eye words, such honest stone, no fooling around anywhere. Blades of Asperum, in pale sky, foreground, background, cloud streaks beyond, distance think, eucalyptus branch, twitch sway in wind, breeze better, some other branch, yew, cal, hip, thus, long curved leaves as swords, black green in clusters, wave maybe, goodbye. Up, down, or back, forth, eucalyptus, leaves, wave, long, slender, clusters at end of thin branchlets, limply receptive to air waft, no resistance. Whose? Here? In? Them? These? Words, leaves, dumb, but yawping. Evening, deep blue, dark blue sky, in patches between black trees, staid or weary. Room's reflection in window, electric light makes somber color. The writing self's its master. Matter, slave to inner space, takes dictation. Outside recedes from unreal. Bright air, yellow, lit, cloud, white. Not a whit of fur or machinery whir as silence swallows time's thought. You, cal, ip, tus, tosperum, leaves, delicate, waggle sway in hushing winds, whirled breath. Spotted, what? Say that again? We're out of time.